Kalau di saya bagus.
Mana ya? Untuk melatih mana ada untuk melatih ya? Ada. Saya kemarin sudah masuk ke linknya. Email yang WA.
Tes suara. Kameranya nggak nyala dong.
Oke, siap. Mungkin Endah bisa kita mulai ya. Can start now.
Alright, kita akan memulai Bapak dan Ibu acara pagi ini. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
The Honorable Speakers, the Director of Politeknik STIA LAN Bandung, Dr. Joni Daudi, A. Professor of School of Government, University Utara Malaysia, Professor Ahmad Martada Mohammad, Associate Professor of School of Government, University Utara Malaysia, Professor Dr. Rosita Abdul Muttalib, Professor of Politeknik STIA LAN Bandung, Professor Dr. Endang Wiryatmitri Lestariin, the Director of Politeknik STIA LAN Jakarta, Professor Dr. Nurdiah Nurdin, the Honorable Guest from University Utara Malaysia and the National Institute of Public Administration of Indonesia, ladies and gentlemen, all participants, good morning and welcome to our international webinar on Toolkits of Public Administration in Overcoming Crisis and Uncertainties in the Pandemic Era. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Endah Trianomsari and I am the Master of Ceremony of this event. We hold this webinar in response to the current situation in which the COVID-19 pandemic disrupts the rapid development of technology and science, affect our social and economic state, and very unfortunately also cost us hundreds of thousands lives. Many initiatives to reduce the spread of COVID-19 pandemic and economic paralysis were carried out by most affected countries by issuing policies in various fields, including health, social assistance in the form of safety nets, and economic policy to boost growth. Facing the uncertainties of the future, public administration aims to be the forefront and managing the pandemic problem solving. One of the alternatives is how public administration prepares the toolkit to help the government find the right strategy in formulating public policies to respond to the pandemic. And this is what we will address very soon through this webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, to run our webinar smoothly, I would like to remind the participants the rules of the event. Firstly, please mute your speakers during webinar. Jadi Bapak Ibu silakan untuk mute speakernya selama webinar. Participants are encouraged to write their question through the chat. The selected question will be answered during the Q&A session. We also suggest the speakers to reply to the questions on the chat. Jadi Bapak Ibu bertanya melalui chat bisa dalam bahasa Indonesia, Melayu, atau bahasa Inggris. Kemudian kami juga mengharapkan kesediaan narasumber untuk menjawab pertanyaan melalui chat. All participants will fill the list of attendees and the attendance link will be sent to you by the organizer. Peserta nanti akan mengisi daftar hadir, yang daftar hadirnya dapat dilihat di dalam chat. And all participants are expected to attend the webinar until the end. Bapak dan Ibu diharapkan untuk mengikuti webinar sampai acara selesai. Without further ado, the next agenda is the speech and discussion session that will be led by Mr. Said Abdullah, PhD, as the moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Said Abdullah, PhD.
Okay, thank you, Enda. So, welcome everybody. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Yeah, Enda, before I start to lead this international webinar, I just to remind you about the Indonesian national anthem and also.
Oh, all right.
Okay, so we can hear first the Indonesia Raya and also Malaysian and national anthem. Okay, please.
Thank you, Mr. Said. So, ladies and gentlemen, before proceeding to the keynote and panel speech and discussion, To commemorate our independence as nation, we will be playing the national anthem of the Republic of Indonesia, Indonesia Raya, followed by the national anthem of Malaysia, Negaraku. Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And we also like to invite you to pray according to your religion and belief. 1 minute of silence, please. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And now it's come to the main session that will be led by Mr. Said Abdullah. Mr. Said Abdullah, please.
Thank you, Enda, for your warm welcome to this international webinar. So, everyone, again, maybe please introduce myself. I am Said Abdullah from the School of Administration, Politeknik STIA LAN Bandung. So, first, before we enter the main of the international webinar, so maybe we have to hear something from the Vice Director of Politeknik, which is now held by Ibu Eli Supianti, who will, replace Pak Joni Daud because of something happened to his wife, so he cannot present in this moment. So please, Ibu Eli, could you please to give maybe opening statement or things that to do with this international webinar. Please welcome Ibu Dr. Eli Sufianti. Halo Ibu Eli.
Ya, baik. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Pertama-tama kita panjatkan puji dan syukur kehadirat Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Kita semua pada pagi hari ini bisa berkumpul di ruang virtual ini. Selamat datang kepada semua peserta dalam acara International Webinar Toolkits of Public Administration in Overcoming Crisis and Uncertainties in the Pandemic Era. Pada pagi hari ini, sebelumnya kami mohon maaf, pada kesempatan ini kami mewakili Dr. Joni Daud DA, Direktur Politeknik STIA LAN Bandung yang pada kesempatan ini tidak bisa hadir dikarenakan sesuatu hal yang sangat mendadak. Terima kasih kami ucapkan kepada para pembicara yang berkenan hadir pada kesempatan ini, Profesor Dr. Amir Imbarudin, Profesor Dr. Nurliah Nurdin, Profesor Dr. Ahmad Martada, Associate Profesor Dr. Rosita, Profesor Sedarmayanti, Profesor Solahuddin, dan semua kolega kami dan semua partisipan pada kesempatan ini. Bapak Ibu yang kami hormati, tidak terasa masa pandemi COVID-19 telah berlangsung mulai awal tahun ini. Dan ini memberikan tantangan bagi kita semua. Tidak hanya sektor kesehatan, tapi kita diharuskan untuk bergerak bersama-sama di semua sektor untuk mengatasi permasalahan ini. Dan pada hari ini, kita dari Politeknik STIA LAN Bandung, Politeknik STIA LAN Jakarta, dan Politeknik STIA Makassar berkolaborasi dengan School of Government Kolgis University Utara Malaysia untuk menyelenggarakan webinar internasional sebagai bentuk kontribusi kita dari dunia akademik terhadap upaya untuk memecahkan permasalahan-permasalahan yang ada dari sisi public policy dan administrasi publik. Kami berharap apa yang kita laksanakan pada pagi hari ini memiliki peran yang sangat berharga sebagai kontribusi kita terhadap permasalahan-permasalahan yang sedang kita hadapi bersama. Dan terima kasih atas kerjasama yang sudah terjalin. Mudah-mudahan pelaksanaan webinar pada pagi hari ini bisa berjalan dengan lancar. Dan semoga kerjasama di antara kita bisa berjalan lebih baik lagi. Dengan ucapan Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, International Webinar Toolkits of Public Administration in Overcoming Crisis and Uncertainties in the Pandemic Era dibuka dengan resmi. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much. Terima kasih banyak Ibu Eli Sufianti who already opened this webinar, international webinar. Now we come to the final event of this international webinar. So everyone, again, this webinar theme is the International Webinar of Toolkits of Public Administration in Overcoming Crisis and Uncertainties in the Pandemic Era. So the background of this international webinar is in the midst of the advanced development, technology, and economic growth marked by the sweep of international trade transactions. The world has shocked by the emergence of the COVID-19, the pandemic which killed millions of people, paralyzed various sectors of economy, industry, and created a nervous fear in various cycles. Breakthrough efforts to reduce the spread of the COVID-19 epidemic and economic paralysis were carried out by various countries by making various breakthrough policies in various fields, including health, social policies, assistance in the form of social safety net, economic policies, and to generate economic growth. Apparently, we never know when the COVID-19 will be end. But as a public entity, the state must be present in order to overcome the problems it faces. The state must always be a dynamic institution in finding appropriate and fast alternative solutions for immediate reduce the rate of the spread of the COVID-19. One of the alternative solutions is how the public administration's presence in this occasion prepares the right toolkits to help the government and the right solutions for formulations, public policy, and for the beloved nations and the states. The development of analytical tools of public policy and administrations is crucial in determining how the policy directions will be taken. So everyone, this is the right moments that we can hear some of the variety of the main points, the concepts, the public policy tools and analysis, how to overcoming crisis in the pandemic era. So we have 5 speakers here, 2 from the University of Utara Malaysia and 3 from the School of Public Administrations, Politeknik STIA LAN Jakarta, Bandung, and Makassar. But everybody from also we say hello from those from Malaysia and also those from Indonesia who present in this international webinar. Everyone, please welcome now the first speaker, Professor Dr. Ahmad Murtada Mohammad. Are you there, Professor?
Yeah, I'm here.
But before we hear something from the Malaysian context that will be presented by Professor Dr. Ahmad Murtada Mohammad, so I will first read his brief CV, curriculum vitae. His name is Professor Dr. Ahmad Murtada Mohammad. Now he is head of Cluster Governance and Integrity, School of Government, College of Law, Government and International Studies, University of Utara, Malaysia. Some of the previous appointments that already by him is the first is lecturer in the University of Utara, Malaysia from 1996 until now, and also he is a senior lecturer University of Utara, Malaysia in 2004. Some of the academic qualifications that already got in his hands. The first is he got PhD in Public Administration and Law from Illinois University, Carbondale, USA in 2004. Second, he was in the Master of Public Administration in Indiana State University, also from the USA in 1996, and he got Bachelor in Political Science, also in the same country, in the United States in 1991. So everyone, please, the honorable speakers, Professor Dr. Ahmad Murtada Mohammad, your time maximum 20 minutes, Professor, in your presentation. So everyone, please welcome Professor Dr. Ahmad Murtada Mohammad.
Thank you very much, Pak Said. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. And a very good morning to everybody. my distinguished other panelists from Indonesia, and also my colleague from UUM, Professor Rosita. And first of all, I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me. I'm sure that this program is very, very good and very timely, because we are dealing with an unprecedented crisis in the world. So I'm sure that this conference is very good, and I thank the organizer for organizing such a wonderful and timely conference. And I would also like to express my deepest appreciation to the organizer for inviting me to share my thought. I'm sure that whatever I'll be sharing with all you guys hopefully will be beneficial to everyone, and hopefully we can use this conference to exchange ideas, exchange opinions, and hopefully will help us in formulating policies that will be good not only for Indonesia but also for Malaysia. So without further ado, let me go to my presentation. So the title of my presentation is Malaysian Public Policy Trend During Times of Crisis. And of course, whenever we are dealing with a very significant crisis like this, it requires that all governments in the world to be very careful in terms of formulating policies that will respond accordingly to the crisis. And I'm sure not only in Malaysia, in Indonesia, all over the world, whenever we are facing with such a crisis, a lot of aspects, for example, economic, policy, and social, we have to formulate policies that will respond to the specific need of every sector in the country. And with regard to that, Malaysia is also the same thing. Government has formulated a lot of economic policies, and also Malaysia, we have also faced an unprecedented crisis in terms of politics when the change of government took place during this pandemic. And also a lot of people are badly affected by this pandemic crisis, COVID-19 crisis, and therefore it requires specific policies formulated by the government to make sure that all citizens that are affected will be helped. And a lot of social policies, for example, like subsidies, have been given to the targeted group. And all of these are important because it will enhance the well-being of our citizens. So let us look at what does the global crisis impact the whole countries in the world. So in this matter, if you were to look at some of the actions taken by a lot of countries, every country has to take a different kind of policy action. And it depends on the political environment in that country. And Malaysia is also the same thing. So in our country, we have introduced what we call Malaysian Movement Control Order. And this control order have gone into 5 or 6 phases already, and it has been proven to be very successful. In fact, our country's Malaysia Health Director General has even been recognized as the top 3 health figures in the world. So this is very impressive. If we were to look at some of the health figures in the world, even United States is not part of the top 3. So this is very encouraging. And apart from the health policies, government has also taken steps to give out subsidies in terms of monetary support and other fiscal measures to stimulate domestic demand. So everything is done based upon the need of the population. So which is very different from some other countries. You know, for example, in America, even though you see that America is a developed countries, you know, they call themselves the most powerful nation in the world, but still in regard to domestic policies to tackle COVID-19 crisis, you know, we have seen a lot of failures. There are inconsistencies between statements from President Trump and also from other health-related figures. So that's why in America, you have seen a spike number of cases in regard to COVID-19, and there have not been a very encouraging trend to look at the way United States is tackling the pandemic or the COVID-19 crisis, you know. Compared to a lot of smaller countries like Malaysia, Hong Kong, New Zealand, you know, these smaller countries have shown tremendous good in terms of promoting and deliberating policies that help the citizens, and not only the citizens, but also the country in terms of making sure that citizens are protected by the COVID-19 crisis. So going back to Malaysia, of course, you know, we are not insulated. Malaysia is a small country, you know, compared even to Indonesia. We are not insulated from this COVID-19 crisis. And in fact, we are very badly affected by the crisis, and all the economies are slowing down. And in fact, we are in the process of recovering and recuperating. Some of the sectors are still closed. You know, we are still closing our borders from people to come to Malaysia, and therefore a lot of economic activities, you know, cannot be performed, and therefore economy is very slow. The growth is very slow, and also because we know that COVID-19 crisis has badly affected not only Malaysia, all over the world, and therefore the prices of commodities are down. It also affects the way, especially our revenue. And when the economy is slowing down, a lot of factories, you know, are closed. A lot of organizations, private sectors, you know, they have to sometimes terminate their employees. So in a way, this COVID-19 crisis has affected tremendously in regard to a lot of people are being unemployed. In fact, the latest figure by the government, it shows that the number of unemployed people will be reaching 2 million people. So that's a big number of people who are unemployed at the moment. So therefore, government has to introduce a lot of policies to make sure that the country can be managed well, you know, despite the fact that the economy is slowing down, and then other sectors are also badly affected. So let's look at the challenges faced by our country. And I have mentioned earlier, private sector workers are laid off, small traders cannot do their work, farmers, rubber tapers, you know, are badly affected. Inflation is also a concern, you know, because when a lot of private sector, they cannot import a lot of goods, and then sometimes the prices of goods are going up, and therefore they cannot control. So it also affects our local market. So that's why inflation is a big concern nowadays. Like I mentioned earlier, unemployment is very high. You know, we also have a fiscal deficit when our revenue, because 64% of our revenues are from oil. And when the prices of oil are going down, so it also affects the revenues for our countries. And in return, it also affects the way the country has to be managed. And therefore, a lot of people who are badly affected by loss of work, and the government has to introduce certain policies. And they have been asking private banks to make sure that loans have to be rescheduled, and therefore the government or even the private sector banks have introduced what we call moratorium for 6 months to allow some kind of time for borrowers to make sure that they can get back to their life, and especially use whatever money that they have to buy necessary products, you know, rather than to use the money to pay the loan. So this is very good, because in a way it reduces the burden of people in the country. And apart from that, government has in fact taken a lot of stabilization measures, and some of these measures are aimed at making sure that the burden of people can be reduced, and also to make sure that our economy is continued to be resilient, especially from the impact of COVID-19. So a lot of stimulus packages have been introduced, and these stimulus packages are aimed at a short-term measures. They are not aimed at the long-term measure because they are very costly to the government, especially when even the revenues are down. So government has to be very careful when it comes to managing the finances. So some of the stimulus packages include enhancing social safety net program. A lot of programs are being introduced to help, especially the rural people who are badly affected, and in fact also some of the people who are in the cities. They lose their job, they cannot go to work, they lose their income. So social safety net is one of the important programs introduced by the government. And also lately, government has also provided grants in terms of making sure that small medium enterprises can get back on their toes. They can continue doing businesses. So in a way, it will help these people who are focusing on small and medium enterprises. And this is a new norm that are taking place not only in Malaysia, but all over the world, including Indonesia, I'm sure, because now when people cannot go physically to a lot of places, so what the government does is making sure that e-commerce will become the new norm. So a lot of businesses, are venturing into e-commerce. So for example, like Food Panda, last time, probably whenever you want to go to the restaurant to buy food, you have to go and sit there physically. But now it is not possible because of this COVID-19. You have to go and buy online, and then someone will be sending the food to you. So not only food, a lot of, in fact, many businesses have turned into e-commerce as part of the new strategy to face the incoming crisis. So I'm sure these new e-commerce ventures, are being looked upon as the new way of doing businesses. So I'm sure these have given a lot of opportunities, especially for the young people, to go into businesses, especially when a lot of organizations can no longer offer jobs to them. So e-commerce has now become the necessary part of the economic sector in Malaysia. And finally, because of the less revenue taken by the government from the oil, so whatever the government does is making sure that it really focuses on minimizing the expenditure. So therefore, a lot of government projects are reprioritizing to make sure that only important and critical projects are being undertaken, and projects that are not important at the moment, they will have to be delayed, because some of these projects are costing millions and billions of dollars to the government. So government cannot afford to spend money on unnecessary and uncritical projects. So therefore, a lot of time government have make sure that only important and critical projects are being undertaken at the moment. So even though we are in Malaysia, we are facing COVID-19 crisis, but we have also faced a lot of other crises. For example, political crisis. Recently, I'm sure a lot of Indonesians are also aware. We have a change of government after 20 months. The last government took place in 2018. In March this year, a new government was formed because of the loss of support to the previous government by members of parliament. So even though the country was facing COVID-19 crisis, but at the same time, the country has also to move on despite the fact that political crisis is also becoming an issue in Malaysia. So this is another aspect that I think, even though COVID-19 crisis is also important, but at the same time, we have to make sure that political stability should be the utmost important agenda for all the politicians and even to the current government. So therefore, government has taken a lot of steps to strengthen political accountability to make sure that even though we are facing a lot of crisis, but politically we are stable. And government has done a lot of things to improve political accountability. And one of the important aspects why Malaysia has been very successful and why our health DG has been recognized as one of the top 3 civil servants in the world is because of politicians and civil servants need to work together during this pandemic. You know, because I'm sure in Malaysia, in Indonesia, a lot of countries in the world, politicians always try to meddle into the affairs of administration, and this is very, very common. So I'm sure those of you who are teaching politics and administration know that sometimes politicians tend to interfere and influence the decision making in the government. So when it comes to political or when it comes to this pandemic and COVID-19 crisis, we have to let the experts do their work. Because, for example, in the health ministry, I'm sure the doctors know what is best for the country, what is best for the people. So that's why there is less interference by the politician in regard to the way the health ministry is doing their own business. So that's why when it comes to this pandemic crisis, we should have less political interference in government matters, because what we want in this time is to focus less on politics, more on critical issues facing citizens. In fact, there have been a lot of grouses, a lot of disappointment by the citizen. When politicians tend to focus more in terms of politics rather than in terms of the well-being of the citizens. So when politicians tend to try to make sure that whatever things done by the government is being politicized, so sometimes it will badly affect the well-being of the citizens. So a lot of people are expressing their anger and have asked the government and in fact the politician from the whether from the government side or whether from the opposition side to make sure they work together and focus on what is important for the whole country, and that is making sure that the well-beings of the citizens are being well protected. And therefore, government have also introduced a lot of actions, to make sure that those people who continue to sometimes incite sentiments, to divide people in times of crisis, they have to be brought to court to make sure they are being penalized, so that it becomes a lesson to other people, not to make sometimes insensitive statement that can create chaos or instability to the country.
Your time is 4 minutes up, Professor.
Okay, so therefore legal reforms are really needed to educate people, to make sure that people continue to obey, because what we are facing is unprecedented. A lot of people, sometimes they don't even know how to react to the crisis. And when the government introduce MCO order, a lot of times people tend to disobey. They don't feel that this MCO order is important. They flout the law. They don't wear masks in the public. They don't practice social distancing. So a lot of times these things, are critical, and therefore government has to take stern action to make sure that people will obey whatever law that have been introduced by the government, because after all, these laws are very important and they are there to protect the well-being of the citizen. So that's why a lot of people, even though sometimes people have been criticized the government because the fines are, for example, nowadays government introduces 1,000 ringgit fine for those who do not wear masks in the public. It seems rather high, but sometimes this is a way of teaching people that you have to make sure follow whatever laws or whatever regulations introduced by the government for the betterment of the people. And also, there have been some by-elections during this COVID-19 crisis, and a lot of new things have been done. So government and private sector, especially NGO, have been working together to make sure that the new norms are being observed and practiced to the fullest. And whenever we are talking about COVID-19 crisis, we are not only talking about the crisis within the country, domestically, we are also talking about the relationship between one country to another. And in this matter, the ASEAN countries, we have to have a legal framework that makes sure that everybody will work together towards making sure that every country is protected by this COVID-19 crisis. So that's why in here I am recommending that we have to look into the existing legal framework to make sure that if one country is taking action, the other country will also take the similar action. Because after all, the protection of every citizen in ASEAN has to be upheld. So we have to have proper mechanism to address regional issues. And one of the important issues facing a lot of ASEAN countries, not only COVID-19, but also human rights, migrant workers, refugees, because, Myanmar Rohingya refugees have become one of the issues that sometimes cause and divide a lot of countries in ASEAN. So we have to come together to address this issue urgently. And in Malaysia, of course, we have to introduce a lot of reform, especially to address all issues related to COVID-19 crisis. And in fact, we are very thankful to the government for taking a lot of steps to improve our administration, our economy and our political system, despite the fact that politically, we have still facing a lot of instability, change of government, the state government is currently taking place, and we will be facing a state election in Sabah, and a federal election in the country, is also looming. So, despite all this COVID-19 crisis, we have also to be ready to face a lot of crisis. And the utmost important for the government is, despite all this crisis, we have to make sure that the well-being of the citizens are protected, and to make sure that the country is stable and the economy is moving and politics is stable. So a lot of reform have been introduced, and Alhamdulillah, things are moving in the right direction. So that's why I said here signs are encouraging. So finally, hopefully, Allah will protect us in this time of COVID-19 crisis. I'm sure there are a number of cases where a lot of people, even our relative, our friends, our neighbors, have succumbed to the disease. So hopefully all the countries in ASEAN will stick together, and especially Indonesia and Malaysia. We are brothers and sisters. So whatever is being done in Indonesia will also affect the families in Malaysia, because we are coming from one rumpun after all. So again, my final thought, thank you again to the organizer, and I hope all the participants are safe, and make sure everybody follows all the guidelines that are being introduced by the health ministry, not only in Malaysia, but also in Indonesia. So if we follow all the guidelines, and inshallah, we will be protected from the disease. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Ahmad Martada Mohammad, for your thought and concepts how to deal with these pandemics. But everyone, maybe we have another speaker also from the University of Utara Malaysia, which is now present. Please welcome Associate Professor Dr. Rosita Abdul Muttalib. But before we hear the presentations from Associate Professor Dr. Rosita Abdul Muttalib, I will first read her brief curriculum vitae. Associate Professor Rosita Abdul Muttalib is an associate professor at the University of Utara Malaysia, College of Law, governments, and international studies. Some of the academic qualifications that already on her hands in 2012, he got PhD in Pentadbiran Awam in University of Science Malaysia in 2012, and in 2000 she got master's degrees in Pentadbiran Awam, also from the same university, University of Science Malaysia, and she got a bachelor degree in Pengurusan Awam in University of Malaysia in 1998. So that is her brief curriculum today. Now we can hear the presentations from Associate Professor Dr. Rosita Abdul Muttalib, also from the same context, from the Malaysian context. Please, your time, Associate Professor Dr. Rosita Abdul Muttalib, is 20 minutes to come. Please, distinguished Associate Professor, please, your time now.
Ya, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang, salam Nusantara. First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Said as the moderator of this event, and also for giving me an opportunity to share some views and a little bit knowledge about this topic today. Also to all the narasumber and STIA committee for organizing this event. Okay, today I would like to share with all of you on this pandemic, and my topic will focus on the human resource experience, human resource aspects, as how Malaysia experienced that. Mr. Can I control my slide? Mr. Moderator?
Tim
Sure.
Not yet. Membantu Egi atau nah.
Oke.
Mungkin akan dikontrol oleh Prof. Rosita ya, mungkin diberikan ruang untuk beliau agar bisa mengontrol.
Alright, okay. My focus will be Malaysia's experience from human resource perspective. Okay, as what has been mentioned by my Sifu and also my colleagues from UUM, okay, Professor Dr. Ahmad Martada. Okay, this pandemic is actually serious and it affects us globally. And Prof also mentioned about the impact of the pandemic, okay, generally, and how it affects not only Malaysia but all of us globally, economically, and also from the social aspects. Okay, here I would like to focus on what Malaysia have done so far and what we plan to do in the long term in terms of human resource aspects. Okay? Before I proceed further, I would like to share with you findings from AON Pulse, a private consultant, on Malaysia's on the impact of Malaysia that has been done in March 2020. Okay, this is actually a survey that has been participated by 76 organizations that contain of various organizations in Malaysia, and the participants are CEOs and also human resource practitioners. Okay, as what you can see, the participants or the organizations that has been surveyed consists of many industries, for example, from healthcare and pharmaceutical industries, also from manufacturing, finance, from IT, from hospitality, other consumer products, automotive, insurance, and so on. All right, what the data tell us about the impact of this pandemic in Malaysia? Okay. The survey revealed that 73% of the organizations that took part in this research reported a negative impact. Right, as what you can see from the graph, 16% of the respondents should mention significantly negative impact, whereas 57% of the organizations reported slightly negative impact. And significantly negative impacted organizations are primarily from the hospitality industry. Whereas only 14% of the organizations have reported no impact of this pandemic towards them. And 13% of the organizations have reported a positive impact, mainly from the healthcare and pharmaceutical industries. Okay, this makes sense because we know that during this pandemic, so people are becoming more hygiene, they are very concerned about their health and so on. So the positive impact is reflected in these industries. Okay. All right, I don't know what happened to the slide. I'm very sorry.
Maybe the IT teams to take over these problems of the slide. Pak Egi or Anggi?
Or maybe I can ask for help from the committee to share the slide. I don't know what's wrong with this.
So could you please, the IT team, take over this slide so we can manage from the from here, from the IT room.
Okay. All right.
Down.
Okay.
Yep.
Everything.
Okay. Please, Professor.
Yeah. Okay. Next slide, please. All right. Okay. So sorry about that. Okay, this is the extended survey findings of AON Pulse on Malaysia that has been done in February till March 2020. Okay, and let's look at the impact to the organizations. Okay, because of this pandemic, as what you can see, 58% of the respondents reported that there has employees' concern and stress on this pandemic has increased. Okay, we know that from day to day we listen to the news and media that is becoming an outbreak and is becoming serious. So of course employees demonstrated concerns and stress in facing this. All right. Apart from that, also the organizations, 55% of the organizations surveyed mentioned that they experience disruptions in their business operations. Of course, when people get panic, and then people concern more on their life, on their health, and so on. So the concerns is on business operations will becoming less, right? And then 35% of the survey also revealed that there is reduced customer demand on company products and services. Okay, even there's hearsay or rumors saying that this might prolong and we might have food crisis and so on. So people tend to save more money and so on. So this will reduce customer demand on certain products and also services. Okay, apart from that, 35% of the respondents also reported issues of returning to work. And this also result in the productivity decrease, where 30% of the respondents or the organizations mentions that they experience a decrease of productivity. And 21% problem of absenteeism arise in the organization surveyed, because people scared to go out, MCO and so on. There's a strict SOP and so on. So there might be more reasons to absent from work. So apart from cash flow challenges, that resulted in 17% of what has been mentioned by the organizations that surveyed, and also and one positive impact of the this pandemic is increase of amounted to 8% increase in goods and products, and I'm sure this is from the pharmaceutical and healthcare industry. Right? Can we see the next findings? Okay. So how these organizations actually respond to this pandemic? Okay. From the survey, it is revealed that only 55% of the 55% of the organizations, they do not have any plans or have taken any actions to mitigate the business impact due to the COVID-19 outbreak. Okay, and only 45% of the remaining surveyed organizations have taken actions or plans to deal with this impact. Okay? And out of these 45% organizations who respond to this, 89% of the organizations mentioned that they have to review their company's business plan and strategy, whether they might be how many percent of expansions, growth might be a deficit in budgetings and so on. Okay, and because of the decrease of demands in the products and services, of course, many of the organizations, 46% of them mentioned that they hold on their hiring plan. Okay, because there's no need for new recruitment because the business is not growing or expanding. 26% of the respondents revised that mentioned that they have to revise their business targets downwards. Okay, and this is actually considered serious because it's more than 20%. And also 23% of the organizations mentioned defer salary increase cycle or bonus payouts. Yeah? While 20% of the organizations, they're becoming aware of the medical insurance of their staff and coverage of the employees. So 20% of them mentioned that they have to review their current medical insurance. Right?
To remind you, Professor, you have 5 minutes.
Sorry?
We have 5 minutes time to go.
Okay, all right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, on how Malaysia responds to that. All right, my colleague just now, Prof. Ahmad Martada has mentioned about the MCO, which is movement control order. Okay, there is 5 phases of MCO that we divided into 3 main phases. The first one is movement control order. Second one is conditional movement control order. And the third one is recovery movement control order. And as for now, we are in the phase of recovery movement control order. Right. Okay. What our government has done so far in managing and tackling human resource management aspect in Malaysia. Okay. First of all, during the outbreak, the early stage of the outbreak, we established a special fund that we call COVID-19 fund. Okay, to be given to the patients, okay, who has been diagnosed with positive viruses of this COVID-19, and then they will be given 100 ringgit daily during the quarantine and treatment process. This is only for the necessary patients. Okay? And also Ministry of Health and also GLC, they establish a coalition with corporate organizations to obtain more financial aid. Okay, and also to lessen the burden of our medical staff, okay, our frontliners in the healthcare services. So we encourage many parties in the country to also take part, and surprisingly, many of our retired nurses return to work as volunteers to help the frontliners. And apart from that, also government has increased, has given more allowance as a reward to our human capital who work in the health industries and also in other enforcement agencies, police, for example, which is 400 ringgit per month, and now it has been extended to 600 ringgit per month until the pandemic can be controlled. Okay, and apart from that, also to ensure enough support for the employees, especially in the micro and small medium industries, so government has allocated 250 billion, okay, to help these organizations to tackle these aspects. Okay, and also to ensure that the productivity can be maintained and avoid more decrease. So we introduce work from home mechanism, which has been practiced widely, not only in the public sector, but also in the private sector. I'm sure in Indonesia also practice that. Okay, and apart from that, financial burden to ease has been eased, targeted at the hospitality industry, where government allocated 15% discount of electric bills for the travel company, hotels and malls, and 6% service tax exemption for hotels and company to engage who engage in the traveling agencies. This is to ensure that the human capital or human resource aspects can be taken care of, and for the benefit of the employees. Okay, apart from that also, government provide 600 ringgit as one of rewards to the taxi drivers, to the tour guide, and also to the to people or to employees in this industry to help them sustain. Apart from we reduce our employee provident fund from 11% to 7% of their salary. Okay? And also to enhance new recruitment, so government encourage recruitment incentive program and training assistance. And as a result from this, nearly 10,000 of our citizens managed to find employment. And we targeted that, okay, skills upgrading and also upskilling targeted at the necessary industries, like what has been mentioned by Prof. Matada just now, on online or e-commerce, online shopping, and so on. All right. So this is actually what has been taken place in these 4 phases of movement control order. Okay. Next, I would like to brief a little bit on the next slide, please. Okay, on the yes. On the employment aspects, can we move to the next slide? Okay, thank you. Okay, apart from that also, our ministry has issued a guideline on handling this outbreak, and also we have provide several guidance to our employers to ensure that there is agreement between employers and employees in handling this pandemic. Okay, for example, maybe employers and employees can work together and discuss on the salary decrement, or maybe on retrenchment and payoff, right? Because in my area, there is a high-tech park who already retrenched and implement payoff to the employees. Okay, so government encourage that employers and employees work together to find agreement, maybe by salary reduction and so on, to ensure that both sides can sustain a survival. All right. Okay, and move to my last slide. Okay. On the social security of human resource, apart from what I have been discussed just now, there's also other programs that we have targeted. For example, employment retention program, okay, where government provides subsidy to the employees, and also wage subsidy program that depend on the number of the employees in the organizations, and also pay cut or reduction of working hours after discussion between the employee and employer. besides a program introduced by government on Penjana Kerjaya High program. Okay. All right. Let me conclude that. Okay, good. This is actually a short and long-term mechanism or strategy that has been carried out by our Malaysian government, and the issues has been tackled based on the current situations, like what I mentioned, and we hope that we can get cooperation from all, especially in enforcing this SOP to ensure that we can survive and contain this virus from becoming worse than what we are experiencing now. Okay, and to conclude, I would like to show some statistic on until yesterday on this pandemic in Malaysia. Okay, we have more than 9,000 cases, and we managed to cure more than 8,000 people. But we also have loss of 125 victims, right? Okay, and my last word is to all of us, stay home, stay safe, and may Allah protect us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Rosita Abdul Muttalib. That's very wonderful sharing of concepts and also analytical statistics and several measures to overcome the pandemic in Malaysian context in the perspective of more human resource. So now we comes to the other speakers, which is from Politeknik STIA LAN Bandung, Professor Dr. Endang Wiryati Tristari, MSc. Before we hear several thoughts from Ibu Endang, I will read her curriculum vitae. Her name is Professor Dr. Endang Wiryati Tristari, MSc. He is now as one of our professor, as a guru besar, Pembina Utama 4A in Politeknik STIA LAN Bandung. Some of her educational background, she got doctorate degree in public administration from University of Indonesia in Jakarta, and she got also Magister of Public Administration in the same university in University of Indonesia, and she got Bachelor at Pendidikan Management at the IKIP Bandung. Some of her working experiences, so before she in charge in Politeknik STIA LAN Bandung as a guru besar or professor, she was a deputy of bidang diklat aparatur at the National Institute of Public Administration from 2009 until 2014. In 2004 until 2009, she was as the chairman of STIA LAN Bandung. So she is a director, previous director in 2004 until 2009. And some of her experience, she was in charge in some of the echelon 3 from the vice chairman until as a kabit or the head of department in education department in School of Public Administration at STIA LAN Bandung. Some of she already, write some books and journal articles, and some of the famous books that already published is the System Thinking, suatu pendekatan pemecahan masalah, and also System Thinking, suatu pendekatan permasalahan yang kompleks and dynamics, and also some of the technique analysis of management dengan network planning. So that was some of his product. Very good, Ibu Endang. But we cannot enough, hear her CV. as an expert in system thinking. So it's nice to have sharing the ideas, thought in terms of system dynamics directly from Ibu Endang. So Ibu Endang will present a system dynamic concept and applications maybe in the public policy. So please Ibu Endang, your time is 20 minutes from now. So silakan Ibu Endang, waktunya 20 menit sampai dengan mulai dengan saat ini. Silakan.
Okay, thank you Pak Said Abdullah. Good morning everybody.
Good morning Ibu Endang.
Morning.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
I would like to thank you for all for this opportunity, and it is such an honor to share about proposing government initiative and collaborative governance framework for better pandemic handling in Indonesia, a system thinking approach. First of all, COVID-19 is disaster that hit the world at public goods area because nobody know about who produce and who consume the virus. Everybody can get exposed if not taking care of themselves. In the perspective, I forget my in the perspective of public administration, COVID-19 is the pressure for good governance effort in providing public values that bring maximum benefit. It's also to test the financial capacity of my country. Unlike the previous economic crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic on global scale has devastated the economic dimension and affected many other dimensions of society. The role of the private sector, and the government is an integral part of the overcome the COVID-19 pandemic. COVID-19 pandemic is a dynamic and complex problem. System thinking approach is a problem-solving tools. The COVID-19 pandemic, it is my purpose. If we look if we look the viewed from the spread of the virus in Indonesia, almost all regions in Indonesia have been affected by pandemic because almost of all areas colored red. If you look that all of areas in Indonesia, we have color red. And so we can look also the currently Indonesia is growing toward the top of curve. There are two possibilities that will happen. It will increase or decrease. They depend on the subsystem that affect it. The curve, we can look the curve. The curve related by the what method demonstrated that health facilities and medical personnel are very limited. So it is making curve difficult to slope. Subsystem of system thinking approach are all in one: economic, social, and health contraction. The economic in Indonesia in the second quarter of 2020 contracted with a growth rate of minus 5.32% year-over-year. So people start to be permissive and perceive the risk of COVID-19 is still low. Social mobility continues to be carried out. New daily cases and the number of daily deaths are still increasing. The number of active cases continues to rise and more than those of have recovered. So the health service the health services capacity is limited. And then if we look the stimulus from nation, in my position, the Indonesian government has done a lot of financing in handling of COVID-19, both for the support of business world, social safety net, and health. The budget for COVID-19 handle increased from 505 trillion to 641 trillion, then 677 trillion. The demand side budget is in the form of social protection, family hope program, basic food card, electricity discount, cash assistance for non-Jabodetabek. Jabodetabek is Jakarta, Bogor, Depok, Tangerang, and Bekasi. Furthermore, as the supply side, the government also has allocated it in the form of interest subsidized placement of fund of the construction, micro, small, and middle enterprise, and labor-intensive, guarantees, tech-intensive, state-owner enterprise, state-owner enterprise support, regional government, and tourism support. This is the support from the nation. Part of social protection, the largest allocation for COVID-19 handling costs, the middle, small, and micro, small, middle enterprise is 123.46 trillion. It is found is quite large and the second largest after cost of social protection. So McKinsey have survey data. What give a great hope is the optimism of Indonesian people. At least a driving force for the resolution of COVID-19 pandemic problem. It can be seen from the figure below. Indonesian in the upright corner. So people in Indonesia, a lot of optimism. Okay, the transparency of one of case to face crisis pandemic. One of the important lessons from the failure in handling MERS previously in big countries, for example, South Korea, in that the government must be open and transparent to the public. The government actively communicates with citizens to increase their awareness and involvement in anti-COVID-19 action. As several European countries fill in the initiator mitigation, they gradually shifted from the soft and the reactive approach to a more restrictive and aggressive approach by increasing their testing capacity, forcing guarantees ordering partial lockdown, while they put more emphasis on citizen cooperation in dealing with this COVID-19 pandemic. The Indonesian government must immediately learn from the initial failure of COVID-19. The government also needs to build administrative and policy capacity to maximize the potential of demand and the prepare for failure challenges with minimal disruption to quality of life and free and open democratic society. As South Korea learned from costly lesson on failure to handle mess. The government provides all necessary information, including up-to-date statistics like the Indonesian, statistics on effective cases and death rate, as well as detail and the movement path. And we are looking now the cap. Sorry, I want to. Mau balikin ke sini. We are looking the gap between the statement of the central and regional leader and the effort of the state official can undermine the development of national effort. The public expect that the government can define policy issues and speak clearly and consistently. We know the COVID-19 pandemic has taught as many things. Policymakers, experts, and public managers need to be able to interpret comparative data about their government performance in meaningful ways. Simultaneously, they are faced with different sources and measurement of data around COVID-19 about having to have the tool of access these sources strategically and speed of decision and the different source of data are required because can be challenges for any policymaker, experts for public manager on understand how to COVID impact, especially from comparative perspective. And then we are propose a system thinking approach to solve complexity problem. And I have been how to explore my mind for how to solve complex the COVID-19 by system thinking, because system thinking invitates all elements of society, government, private sector, and other stakeholders to contribute together, but with the requirement that each element has a logical, realistic, and systemic relationship. Let we know in the causal loop diagram. We have three balancing loop, B1, B2, and B3. Of course, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, this has an impact on health, social aspect, and a result disrupt community economic activities and government. This economic aspect is but then the government and the community carry out mitigation and recovery of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we so have a reinforcing law. It is R1 and R2. The government is doing mitigation or recovery due to the COVID-19 pandemic by innovating countermeasures and that can encourage the public to participate. There are three activities government policy that can be carried out to accelerate the purpose to COVID-19 pandemic, namely respond, recover, and thrive. All of these are supported by good and transparent leadership at every level. Correct, accurate communication and information are required for these three activities to run well.
Bu Endang, mohon izin waktunya tinggal.
Okay. The pandemic has changed, 2 minutes more. The pandemic has changed a multidimensional perspective, but the three most important dimensions that are considered health, economy, and social. There are a system of causality to continue to be managed properly in maintaining sustainability. Public trust is the key to participate in facing a pandemic, and we need to synergize between three important dimensions, the health, social, and economic dimension, so the public trust is maintained and rises. And finally, public value can be maximized to go through a crisis and pandemic. Okay, it's all. I will very happy if we can discuss the proposing government initiative and collaborative governance framework for better pandemic handling in Indonesia, a system thinking approach with you. And thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Okay, thank you Ibu Endang for your share in terms of the system dynamic, system thinking approach in dealing with the COVID-19 in Indonesian perspective. Everyone, now it comes to the next speaker, which is also from the National Institute of Public Administrations, from the Politeknik of STIA LAN Makassar. Professor Dr. Amir Imbarudin, MBA, PhD. He is a guru besar or a professor in Politeknik STIA LAN Makassar. Some of his experience in the positions as a lecturer in STIA LAN Makassar and also as a lecture in program Pasca Sarjana, University of Negeri Makassar, and as a local staff as the Consulate General of Japan in Makassar. In 1990 until 1991, Professor Amir as a Secretary of Marine Science Educational Project in University of Hasanuddin, Makassar. His educational background, he is, he finished doctor as a PhD in development administrations in Australian National University from 2003, and then also he got master degree in development administrations from the same university, Australian National University, ANU, Canberra, in 1996, and in 1990 he got a bachelor degree in English department in Institut Keguruan dan Ilmu Pendidikan IKIP Makassar. So everyone, we can now hear the presentations from Professor Dr. Amir Umbarudin. So Professor Amir, your time 20 minutes from now. So please, distinguished Professor Amir, you can begin your presentation.
Thank you, Pak Said. Before I start, I would like you to share my presentation because my internet is not so stable right now. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Speakers both from University Utara Malaysia, Prof. Martada and Associate Professor Bu Rosita, and my colleague from Prof. Nurlia from Politeknik Jakarta and Prof. Endang of Politeknik Bandung and the organizer, of course. Thank you for inviting me to share my thought on what the local government, especially the provincial of South Sulawesi, has done in facing the pandemic COVID-19. The policy called Wisata COVID-19 or COVID-19 tourism. I would like to start by showing you some statistical background. In terms of Indonesia, the case until the early August, positive 128,000 and recover 83, almost 84, and death almost 6,000. Yeah. In terms of provinces, 5 provinces with the highest positive cases, and you can see South Sulawesi, Sulawesi Selatan is the 4th, or the highest cases outside Java. 10,531, 8.3% of all cases in Indonesia. But if we take this same figure and compare with the number of population, still DKI Jakarta the highest percentage, but the second comes South Sulawesi. Yeah, population only almost 9 billion, but the cases 10,531. So again, South Sulawesi is the highest province outside Java, which positive cases. In South Sulawesi, positive, as I said before, is about 10,000. There is a small difference between national data and provincial data. Recover 7,000 and death 334. Economic impact, sum of economic impact, almost 15,000 lost their jobs, and almost 5,000 laid off and terminated almost 500. In more than 1,000 businesses in 17 districts and cities in South Sulawesi. Makassar as the capital, still the highest loss of jobs, and Tanah Toraja is the second. As you know, maybe Tanah Toraja is one of the most popular tourist destination in South Sulawesi. And we know that tourism is one sector which is badly affected by this pandemic. Now I'll show you some fact about South Sulawesi to fight this pandemic. The area is more than 46 kilometers square with limited health facilities. Good hospitals, mostly located in Makassar, the capital city. Limited access to health services for the poor, limited access to healthy food for better immune, limited household facilities for self-isolation or social distancing for the affected by the virus. And also, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, we have limited knowledge on COVID-19. So trauma and first spreading among the society. And what the government do, what the local government do. The governors release a policy, he call it Wisata COVID-19, COVID-19 tourism. Yeah? A cooperation between the South Sulawesi provincial government and a number of hotels in Makassar to implement independent isolation. Hotels become quarantine places for people under surveillance. We call it here ODP. People under surveillance. There is people, there are patient under surveillance. We call it PDP. And people without signs, OTG. They are positive COVID, but without symptom. And positive patient for COVID-19. So the program actually a cooperation between the local, the provincial government with a number of hotels. There are 7 4-star hotels join the program. And beside getting usual hotel services, meals, laundry, etc., participants also have regular health services by doctors and nurses. So they have comfortable atmosphere, nutritious and regular food, regular physical exercise, and adequate rest, because it is in the hotel. Also, they have regular sharing meetings to educate participants regarding COVID. So they are having meeting and in which some person tell about everything about COVID. So they have good knowledge how to deal with this pandemic later. The program, the team programs, yeah. The health agency, we call it here Dinas Kesehatan Provinsi, yeah. And there is also team for lab to test the whether the participant catch the virus or not yet. And there is also a representative from UNICEF. And of course, medical team consisting of doctors and nurses, and involve also security from army and police officers. The question is why hotels? Yeah. The governor, the provincial government argue that they try to tackle both health, economic, and also social issues, yeah, in the hotel. Yeah. Economically, by placing them in the hotel operation can still go on, so saving the hotels and hotel-related industry from bankruptcy. Yeah. During the COVID, in Makassar, in South Sulawesi, hotel occupancy only 6%, and 156 hotel closed, and more than 1,000 employee layoff. This is the impact of the pandemic, especially to hotels and hotel-related industry. The local government also argued that the policy, the program humanizing the sufferers with nutritious and sufficient food and enough rest and exercise. We believe that improving immune will be better to fight the virus. And also preventing the hospital overload. As I mentioned before, that mostly the standardized, the good hospitals is in Makassar. And the participant of this program, not only from Makassar, but all from the cities, yeah, in South Sulawesi. So the city government can send all their people to join this program. The government also believed that by centralized isolation, it can break the chains of virus spread with centralized isolation. And also because they have a comfortable atmosphere in the hotel, a 4-star hotel, it will reduce the stress, freeze, and paranoid. The name of COVID-19 tourism itself, Wisata COVID-19, is selected to get rid of the scary impression of the pandemics. And last but not least is also educating people regarding COVID-19. As I said before, that they have regular meetings, to educate the participant about COVID-19. And then they hope the alumni would spread the knowledge about COVID-19 to their family, their friends, and to general public. That's the reason why they put them in the hotels. And result, by the end of July, almost 3,000 participants involved and almost 2,000 recover COVID-19 free. And only 35 referred to the hospitals because they cannot do it in the hotel. And still about 1,000 still isolated in the hotel. Of course, saving the hotels, actually hotels participated in this program and related small businesses, catering, supplying food to the hotels, etc. And the government claimed that the amount 500 billion budget allocated to fight COVID-19, they use only 8 billion and 2 billion for hotels bills. And also, they claim that nearly 2,000 alumni ready to become educators in their own circumstances. So that's the local government claim about this policy. The last one, I'd like to show you the comment from one of the participants, Andi Putri Ipo. I had many experiences during the quarantine at the Swiss Bell Hotel. When my swab test positive, my feelings were mixed, sad, irritated, and shocked of not being able to get along with my other people and being isolated in the place where I live. I was stressed for a while, but slowly I started to get excited because not only me, but many people were in the same boat as me. In addition, the assisting officer continued to provide motivation and education so that I can be healthy again. During the quarantine period, we were given nutritious food, vitamins, medicine, and exercise. And the last one, this is actually my employee in the campus, our driver, also positive, swab positive, and we put it in the program. And his comment is, I like it in the hotel because besides being comfortable place to rest, the atmosphere is not too boring. Foods and drinks regularly available every day. Every morning doing exercise and sunbathing. Vitamins and medicine are provided by the medical team. But I think lack of physical checkup by doctors. So he believed himself that being isolated in hospitals is better than being isolated in the hotel in terms of checkups by doctors. That's all I think, Pak Said. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Time is, very, very strictly to the time. It's exactly 20 minutes, so I cannot, give you any reminders for that. So, so we come to the last but not the least presenter, which is come from our National Institute of Public Administration, Ibu Dr. Nuria Nurdin. Before we hear the presentations from Ibu Nuria Nurdin, I will first read her curriculum vitae. So her name is Professor Dr. Nuria Nurdin, SOS MA. So her position is Director of Politeknik STIA LAN Jakarta. So before she in charge as a director in Politeknik STIA LAN Jakarta, she is a professor in political science in IPDN, Institute of Governments. And then some of her positions as Secretary of Doctoral Government Science Programs in the graduate program at IPDN, and she was a Director Assistant of Academic Board Program for Profesi Kepamong Kerajaan, also in the same institutions, Institut Pemerintahan Dalam Negeri or IPDN. She was an expert team as a local government initiative network, home based in Sri Lanka. She was head of quality assurance graduate programs at the Institute of Government Studies, Ministry of Home Affairs. Some of her educational background, she got a doctorate degree in political science in Department of Political Science, Indonesian University in Jakarta in 2011. And she got Masters of Art in Political Science at the Comparative Politics, Northern Illinois University in the USA in 2003. So we have some of the speakers from the USA minded. Here also, she got a bachelor degree in social science, in international relations, political science, Hasanuddin University, Makassar. Ibu Professor Dr. Nuria have some awards as well. A scholarship from Bapenas in 2001 and 2002 as assistant at the Illinois Regional Asset Depository in Springfield, Illinois in the USA, 2002 until 2003. And she got Fulbright Dissertation Research Program, Ohio University in 2009 until 2010. So that is the curriculum vitae of Professor Dr. Nuria Nurdin SOS. So now we can hear some of her thoughts on how to deal with the pandemics in the perspective of governance. So please, your time, Professor Dr. Nuria Nurdin SOS, 20 minutes from now.
Okay, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Okay, Alhamdulillah, I'm really grateful to be around, and I would like to share my PowerPoint. Since maybe Prof. Amir, can you please give me a chance? It seems that I can't. If you're still showing the PowerPoint, then I can't.
Not me.
Okay, who is
the committee?
Okay, I will. Can I share my PowerPoint myself?
So please,
yes.
Could you please help Ibu Nuria Nurdin?
No, I can show it myself. Only it's showing saying that another participant using the PowerPoint. Can I share?
Not yet, Bu Nur.
Okay. While waiting for my presentation to be shown, I'm glad to be around, and thank you very much to have me around here, Prof. Martada, Prof. Rosita, and my colleagues from STIA Bandung, Makassar, and also for participants who stay until this time, almost 11 o'clock, Jakarta time. And it's good to be the final or the last speakers, so I can conclude actually what actually other speaker already talked about. And I wish it's already showing.
We haven't seen yet the.
I know, but it's saying one participant can share at a time. Let me see. Oh. Can you please just showing what I've sent you, please?
Please, Andy or Agni, could you please help Professor?
Yeah, usually I just can show up my presentation, but there's a lot of conversation in this share screen. I'm sorry for this time conscious.
Yes.
Okay, I wish everybody can see this and go on, please. It is not practical. Okay, so after my other speakers already speak a lot about what the condition in Malaysia and also the condition in Indonesia. So I would like also to share, as already stated by the moderator, that basically my background is political science. So I would like to see this situation, the pandemic times, in three principles of public administration, which is also a part of political science and knowledge. First, how's the policy development and coordinations? And second, about public service and human resource management. And the last is a public service delivery. And I think this is the three cores that need to be think together. Because policy development in this pandemic should be changed, including the coordination between central government and local government. Also, how is the public service? And most important is how is the public service delivery during this pandemic? And I would like to go, please. Okay, so this is not a new concept. This is actually concept of VUCA. Why the world, when it's facing uncertainty, they look back on this concept. This concept of VUCA actually has been introduced in early 90, in early 90 in the military world, when there is a war or in the condition of uncertainty. There is not enough information, not enough equipment, and they have to fight. It seems like they have to fight in the fog war, unclear situation. This is the concept. So the current government has been challenged to do this, to do a volatile, uncertain, complexity, and ambiguous. So what can be explained? It won't be takes time. So a time of volatile, there's a rapid change. There's a rapid change with these unknown situations that happen to all countries, including Indonesia. It has been said by Prof. Martada also. Non-countries has been prepared for these situations, including Indonesia. Even developed countries not prepared for this situation. So a rapid change has forced many countries with their own ways how to cope with these situations. Plus uncertainty. There is no such a prediction in the future when will be this pandemic over. Or even there is we just a week ago, there's an announcement from one of Indonesia universities that already found the virus, the antiviruses. There's still a question of this using this. So there is an uncertainty. For this uncertainty situation, certainly it's not good for business. It's not only for business, actually, it's also for a government. How do they deal with this situation? And complexity. What is complexity means here that it is not only about health issues. There's already mentioned how many deaths in Indonesia. According to my notes by yesterday we got Independence Day. By yesterday, there is a total, actually, a number 483 districts in Indonesia has already confirmed infected. with 34 provinces. And they're all struggling right now. We have currently around 6,207 deaths, but as Professor Enda already mentioned, there's a promising hope because there's a lot more to be cured. It's around 94,458. That's the data by yesterday. So there's a hope that we can cope with these situations. This complexity is not only about health issues, but also about economic issue. And there will be a lot of discussion in the earlier March where this coordination between central government and local government, how to cope this situation. And the complexity, because central government tend to see a border area, which is to save the economy, but local government tend to see, this is a health issue, we have to do a lockdown. So there's a complexity occur during these situations. Also ambiguous. Ambiguous means that none of these local government, central government, even other countries actually can predict these unclear situations. So this FUCA concept, which is actually in the military concept, already being in front of each government in the world, how to deal with this pandemic. As Peter Drucker said, that the greatest dangers in times turbulence is not the turbulence. So it's not the turbulence actually, but it is an act with yesterday logic. How do we deal with yesterday happens, the data with pandemic, because it's 100 years ago, it's already happens also a pandemic like what we have today. And then this is like a path, how to make the solution. And it's a promising also, we have to look at positive. Some countries already can cope with this situation. Let's see, for example, countries that succeed in coping with pandemic, New Zealand, Germany, Taiwan, South Korea. Okay, let's see in Southeast Asian countries, it's mentioned also Vietnam and Hong Kong. So how New Zealand, we don't need to explain each of these countries. New Zealand, what the Prime Minister did, immediately, only by having one suspect, immediately, the Prime Minister make a lockdown. So no tourism, no people coming inside, and they're tracking down the people who get infected. On the other side, Taiwan didn't have to apply this lockdown, but the Prime Minister did a lot of effort how to cope with this. For example, having a lot of tests among the populations. So this is what they do. Let me go further to my presentation, please. Go further. Okay, so I will go to the first topic, which is the policy development and coordinations. After this, let's see, this is start in March. So the first announcement Indonesia to have this pandemic, it was 2nd March. It was only 2 suspects at the times. And see, March, April, May, June, July, August. We have already 6 months. So what we have done in these 6 months, actually, first, the minister and agency recognize their work of meeting and decision making. So there is a new habit. If already heard that new normal, maybe this is a new normal, that there is a new kind of meetings among the minister agency. They're still working, meeting and make the decision by a distance. And the second, the parliament transfer additional power, direction to the executive. So Indonesia, political issue is really high. Any decision, always there is a balance by parliaments, either in the central government or local government. But in this pandemic, we can see that this parliament and executive, they work together how to deal with the situation. It's not that many a debate, because they know this is a national disaster that they need to collaborate each other. Unfortunately, for my perspective as a political science, I will see this united governments. United governments means that the color of parliament's support with the executive support is the same color, is the same political party colors. So the check and balance is a challenge also there, because usually when you have the same party support, there will be not much to be against. So this also become a challenge. Next, a new coordination structure was set up in the government to manage this. So all of this situation, actually, I come to conclude that there is a need of a digital government. So this is what the public administration need to change. I don't think that we're going back to the life before the pandemic. We've enjoyed this digital situation. We don't need to go farther. We're just sitting here and then we're having a seminar. This kind of international seminar, probably it costs for participants. It costs for the flight, it costs for the hotels, but then just sitting, you have a quota, you have this international webinar. So there's a need, tremendously, the need of a digital government. And this is also a challenge for province like Jakarta or most province in Java. They don't have that much problems. Instead of, they have a digital already services. Also enough internet connection, but there's still a challenge for our provinces in eastern part of Indonesia, like Papua, Nusa Tenggara. They still need to engage with this situation, especially when we have this study from home. Most students have to study at home. There's still a problem of connection with our students. Next, please. Okay, so the role of central governments. It is undeniable that this situation forced the central government to take a most important part in this situation. Even like local government, there was in earlier March, April, DKI Jakarta, Jawa Tengah, Central Java, West Java. There's some provinces who like to have a lockdown, concerning that they have to protect their people from outsiders. However, the central government think that this cannot be a lockdown separately, but it should be by the concern of central governments. Why is that? Because central government consider about economic continuity. So the role of central government is really important in these situations. And also there's an adequate effort to be ensure all the action and decision taking based on the best available data. So on the earlier March, we don't have that enough data actually, how this virus is infecting many people. But then currently we learn, then the government then collaborate with many sectors to cope with the situation. So it should be based on data. So any decision that government has to make, it should be based on data and consultation with specialists. And the third is that the method has to ensure that all decision and action taking legally compliant, transparent, because people are smarter. Yeah, they could get any information, any other research. So this also force government to be transparent in any decision that they make. Especially actually, there's a lot of schemes how to help people. As already mentioned before, like giving the poor people or jobless people some help with cash. There's a lot of question from people. How do the cash transfers? So people demand for more transparency, and it actually forced the government to be transparent, which is a good deal. There's a demand and there is a supply. Next, please. So the crisis management and coordination for the role of the central government. There is two actually that can be said in this presentation. The approach, there is a reactive approach. What is the reactive approach? How existing resources should be mobilized to respond to crisis once it arises. So we just wait. And I would say that when Malaysia, for example, already prevent this virus with a lockdown, with a lot of measurements, yeah. In March, actually, we still kind of see, oh, the virus still far. The virus probably not get to Indonesia. Even we perceive with the joke like, oh, we just need to pray, or we have a hot weather, or it's just making a joke. This is reactive when actually it starts to Indonesia, and then we call it kind of late, but we pursue further to COVID situation. So anticipatory, just some local government actually perform better, perform faster. Yeah, like Jakarta in January, when the virus already well known in some other countries, in Italy, in Wuhan. So Jakarta already collect all the doctors to see how the preparedness, how many hospitals, how many positions that we have if this virus come to Jakarta. That's called anticipatory reaction to this condition. And then after the March 2nd, actually the central government already make the gugus tugas. We call it gugus tugas, which is from the central government ministers and all the head of district to be a part of this tugas, duty how to cope this. Next, please. So consultation, legitimacy, transparency of government decision making. This is also important in terms of our discussions. As I said before, that people demand for more transparency in how government dealing with this situation, and including the law, how the law could answer people need for the situation. So there is a collaboration actually between government, local government, private sectors, and society to cope with this situation. And I will say that the more transparent of government, then the more public trust of people that can be achieved. More, please. Okay, I'm going to the second issues about public service and human resource management. The public administration undertook various measures to protect the employers. We understand that a lot of private sectors already not having their workers with them because of this crisis. And then according to IMF, International Monetary Fund, actually around 170 countries impact economic on this situation and very severely for the business sectors. In the public sectors, they keep the employers work, and there's a certain situation that make them still work, even like working 24 hours, because working online, there is no need to go somewhere, but the duty is there. So like for example, I'm having example of LAN, yeah, Lembaga Administrasi Negara. Since we have a work from home, yeah, we found a way how to check any staff of they're doing their job. If we used to use a fingerprint, going to the office, use a fingerprint, and then at the time in March, April, we cannot go anywhere. We have to stay at home. So there is a innovation. You just doing your fingerprint in your handphone, and then directly it can see where is your position currently. So you cannot go anywhere. You just stay, and it can be seen in your handphone. This is another like innovation. So there's
3 minutes to go.
Oh, sorry. Go further, please. Further, please. Okay, public service delivery. There's a public service. Okay, staying there. Public service delivery. So at this situation, force central government, local government to adapt the situation with a digital communication. So a digital government, for example, all the services now you can just go online to get the services, unless there's certain thing that need to be get into the office. And even people also trying to take a distance with the government. I mean, if any way they could do just online, they can just do it online, and this force government to do that. actually, this is not an issue in the developed countries, because developed countries already start years ago how to manage the services by online. This is a challenge, including actually a positive way, a positive effect of a pandemic, because local government, central government have to do, there's no other way, you have to do the digital government. I have a friend who just promote a market, a digital market. So it's a local market. They provide it's a small, we call sub-district, not even a city, a sub-district, provide application that people can just do a market, do some buying there with the application in the local area. So this is like a forcing everybody to do a digital. And situation already mentioned that also push government to really wisely use the budget to support economic of people, especially lower income people that need to go out. They cannot just stay at home. They need to go out to search some money. So the money should be go there. And this is also force government to be more strict how they can help these people. Next, please. Okay, I will just take one example and how this pandemic elaborate more collaboration between society. In Jakarta, there is a call of united to help each other during the COVID pandemic. For example, if I have some money, I would like to share this, but I don't know, who I can share my money, who I can share. If I have a lot of rice, I have a lot of advantages, then I can share this to this advantageous group of people, but I don't know where to go. I just contact the governments. There's a certain number. I just contact Jakarta government, and I say I have this situation, and then they can share to people that targeted. Or I want to target the people in, let's see, Kepulauan Seribu, 1,000 islands. But I don't have any equipment to give my help over there. So I just contact the Jakarta KSBB to do the help. But this is a collaboration in a big scale. So this actually a pandemic, we can get a positive side that people start to look at the neighbors, look at the society, because one neighbors get infected, then you could also be in danger. So there's a collaboration can be done in this situation. And I think that will be my last presentation. I will be, lesson learned, please. So my last presentation, this is a lesson learned. So it's a digital government that actually my note that all government need to have a necessary legal and technological capabilities to organize a remote meeting government through video, teleconference, and we have done this, including this conference. Public employees also expected to continue delivering the services during this pandemic with this digital connection. There's also a last aspect of financial incentive, including increases payment of overtime, salary increases. You don't need to come and sign it. Yeah, there is a connection with government. You just report yourself with your number, with your ID card. So the government faced unprecedented situation with some problem, but it seems that we're going there. The notes only that there should be a collaboration between government and society. Other than that, then it will be difficult and it will take time to cope with this situation. So digital government and the collaboration with society. I think that's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Nurlia. So this very wonderful shade of thought, experience, and how to deal with the COVID-19 from the perspective of the government and the political perspective. So now comes to the discussion sessions, now question and answers. So this is good because we have already hear from the speakers from other sides, both sides, Indonesian perspective and also Malaysian perspective. So it's good to have a comparative, a perspective from both countries. Now, before we read some of the questions that already posted in the chat, So I need maybe I give some of opportunities for those who can, ask directly to the speakers. Firstly, from our neighbors, our friends from Malaysia. So maybe those who want to raise questions first from Malaysia, from the University of Utara Malaysia, or audience from Malaysia, please to ask questions to the speakers before I read some of the questions that already posted in the chat room. Is there any questions from Malaysia? Hello, neighbor friends from Malaysia. Is there any question? So maybe I give give a chance to two audience directly to ask questions to the speaker. So maybe those who want to ask questions, please, your question must be direct to who? Either to Ibu Nurlia or Pak Ahmad Murtada, or Ibu Endang, or Ibu Rosita, or Pak Amir Imbarudin. So this is a chance for you. I give you two audience. Okay.
Halo, halo.
Hello, please. From who this is?
Jose Sekitia Tawara.
Excuse me, from?
From Indonesia.
So please, yeah, ask your questions to Professor Endang or Professor Murtada or who? Yeah, okay.
Ya, saya mau tanya, nggak apa-apa Pak ya, pakai bahasa Indonesia Pak ya.
Ya.
Maaf. Ya. Saya mau tanya kepada Ibu Prof Endang ya. Nah, terkait dengan administrasi publik. Nah, sekarang ini kan masa pandemi, artinya kita sedang sedang mengalami rasa krisis begitu. Nah, tapi di dalam di masa krisis ini kan perkembangan informasi begitu cepat begitu kan. Sangat begitu cepat. Mungkin nanti ke pembicara lain mungkin bisa menambahkan ini. Perkembangan informasi begitu cepat gitu kan, sehingga mau tidak mau para pemangku kebijakan harus harus membuat keputusan-keputusan yang tepat juga. Apalagi ketika kita menghadapi masa new normal begitu kan. Nah, baru-baru ini kan kita pemerintah sudah mau menerapkan mana-mana dulu nih yang mau dibuat yang mau memasuki new normal, apakah ekonomi atau apakah pendidikan. Nah, ini adanya miskomunikasi gitu kan. Adanya miskomunikasi terkait kebijakan untuk memasuki new normal. Sehingga ada keraguan atau kebingungan juga di masyarakat, mana yang betul gitu kan. Sehingga pada sekarang ini pun ketika kita memasuki normal, ya semua sekarang sudah biasa saja, bahkan tidak mau tahu tentang tentang protokol kesehatan itu begitu. Kenapa? Karena kebijakan atau keputusan yang diambil pun membuat kebingungan begitu kan. Kebingungan. Pertanyaan saya, bagaimana ini pemerintah ya ketika membuat suatu kebijakan walaupun memang tidak memuaskan semua pihak begitu kan, yang pasti akan ada dikorbankan begitu kan, karena kita tidak bisa berjalan beriringan ya, walaupun kata-kata banyak orang bilang ini bisa, tapi tidak, pasti ada prioritas mana yang kita lakukan begitu. Nah, agar informasi atau kebijakan-kebijakan itu betul-betul tersampaikan dan dimengerti oleh masyarakat begitu kan, karena kan semuanya nggak mengerti loh, semuanya orang nggak bisa dimengerti oleh masyarakat itu gitu. Pasti ada juga kepentingan yang berbeda, belum lagi nanti faktor politik dan lain-lain begitu. Terima kasih.
Oke, baik, terima kasih Jose Huta Barat. Silakan Prof Endang untuk bisa merespon pertanyaan dari Pak Jose Huta Barat.
Oke, Pak, terima kasih. Saya akan jawab saja dengan bahasa ya. Pak Jose, sebenarnya kalau komunikasi di kebijakan publik itu selalu dibuat agar semua orang artinya tidak terkaget-kaget ya. Jadi semua orang bisa menerima, tetapi harus disaring gitu ya. Komunikasinya, informasinya itu cukup banyak. Dan dengan istilah-istilah misalnya sekarang dengan new normal ya, itu bukan berarti pandemik ini berakhir, tapi bahwa ekonomi juga tetap bergerak. Karena mengapa? Kita masyarakat tidak bisa terus berdiam diri. Nah, yang terpenting, maka tadi saya sampaikan, yang terpenting adalah partisipasi masyarakat. Partisipasi masyarakatnya ini adalah kesadaran untuk menjaga agar masyarakat menjaga social distancing-nya itu dilakukan, gitu. Jadi tetap pakai masker, cuci tangan, dan sebagainya. Nah, ini yang tidak disadari oleh semua, oleh masyarakat kita. Ini saya perhatikan meningkatnya data yang terkonfirmasi, ya, itu terus meningkat dan bahkan jauh lebih meningkat karena yang dianggap new normal itu dianggap bahwa virus itu sudah tidak ada. Nah, saya kira itu, jadi itu akan berpengaruh semua terhadap perekonomian. Karena kalau kita tidak melakukan new normal tentunya ya, itu akan menyebabkan perekonomian juga akan terhenti. Kita tidak mungkin berdiam diri terus berada di rumah. Tapi yang terpenting bagaimana kita masing-masing individu itu memperhatikan kesehatan masing-masing. Saya kira itu, Pak. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Professor Endang. So that's the response from the questions from Jose Huta Barat. So I'll give another audience to raise their hands to ask questions to the speakers. Satu lagi saya berikan kesempatan kepada audience to ask questions to the speaker, please. Satu lagi sebelum saya bacakan chat di termin yang berikutnya.
Halo.
Halo, dari siapa ini? Pak Farestian Marga Narinta. Yeah. So please.
My name is Farestian Marga Narinta and I'm working in the Regional Civil Service Agency of East Java Provincial Government. So actually my question is quite similar to the previous one, but I would like to ask Bu Nurlia. Yep, you were mentioned a couple of times about the differences approach that took by the central government and the local government on handling the pandemic. And we all agree that on how bad the central government communicating this pandemic to create a fake sense of security. Like the virus is not that dangerous, it's fine as long as you don't have a pre-existing condition, etc. So it's quite a challenge for the local government to communicate stricter rules, like implementing fine, for example, for those who not wearing masks. So what do you think the local government should focus on and how to create a better communication to public for the local government? And secondly, I would also like to ask about the dynamic between central and local government in Malaysia on handling this pandemic. Thank you.
Okay, please, Ibu Nurlia, Professor Nurlia, to respond to the questions from Ibu Farestian Marga Narita from local governments, which is from the East Java province. Please, Ibu Nurlia.
Okay, thank you very much, Miss. Asking questions? Yeah, okay. It's really interesting. Your question is just jump to the core of the relation between central and local government. So Indonesia, actually, we've seen that how central and local government perceive this pandemic. If you read how, for example, in East Java, Ibu Risma already bought 1,000 masker, yeah, even before the announcement that Indonesia already had this pandemic. So that's called like anticipation of this pandemic. So there's also a question about coordination, how this imply coordination. As I mentioned before, that the central government see in the larger perspective, which is to save economy. That's why having a lockdown in each of provinces is still prohibited. You cannot do this because it's a central government concern. And that's what I'm saying, a coordination. without our coordination, then probably a lot more provinces will do the lockdown. They will prohibit any people to come inside the regions. But then since this is the core business of central governments, so there should be a coordination. And it comes so smoothly after that. But in earlier March, when it's firstly announced, there is still a big question about this coordination. So how will the local government will better apply this situation, physical distancing, wearing masks? It's actually because it's formed already by the national, by a central government. So it's go locally by local wisdoms, how the local government will apply this. Some I see, you can see on YouTube, some funny act like they scare people who not wearing the mask, for example, even though if they walk during the night, for example. There's a lot of best practices in the local governments, how to cope with the situation. But indeed, if we come to the regions, most likely they perceive this is not danger until they see their neighborhood die or get these viruses. So it's become a challenge, like us who already attend these seminars, we could actually share the information, how dangerous this virus, then how could we help governments, we help ourselves. That's actually the motto. We help government, we help ourselves, how to shorten the time of this pandemic to be around us. I think that's my answer.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Nurlia. That's a very straightforward answers about the collaborative governance between local governments and the society. So now,
Pak Said.
Yes. Oh, you want to add something, Professor?
Yeah. Because just now the question also that was raised about coordination between federal and state government in Malaysia.
Please, Professor. Yeah.
Okay, that's a very good question. I've also seen in the chat section a question in a similar nature by Bapak Firman Alam Shah, also asked the same kind of question. So it is very interesting, especially for a country that practices federalism, because there is a separation of power between federal government and state government. In Indonesia, it's a centralized government. So it's very different from federalist structure and centralized structure. And if you were to look at the way things are going on in America, the situation is very similar in Malaysia. In America, there have been a lot of cases where state governments are not adhering to the advice by the federal government. For example, whenever Trump indicated that there was no need to practice, for example, lockdown, and some states who are under the Republican control, they tend to agree with Trump, but some states who are not with the federal government, for example, states they are controlled by Democrats, they feel that the advice by the president or the federal government was wrong. So what they did instead was they apply lockdown because they feel that the situation in the state is very dangerous, and therefore a lockdown is the way to go, or is the proper way to go in that particular state. Similarly, in Malaysia, we also have the same kind of scenario, where policies introduced by the federal government sometimes are not being adhered by the state government, especially state governments that are under the control of the opposition parties. So when that things happen, what the federal government did was they said that because whenever we are in the crisis situation in the federal government, it clearly states there is a constitutional act that says whenever there is a crisis, a National Crisis Act will take place. And under the National Crisis Act, the federal government has the upper hand over the state government. So in a way, the state government has to obey whatever directive issued by the federal government, even though the state government might feel differently about the directive. So this is, there have been a few cases where a few states, they feel that no, they don't want to abide by the ruling from the federal government. But the federal constitution clearly states that in the case of Malaysia, when the country is in crisis, we have a National Crisis Act, and the National Crisis Act clearly stipulates that federal government has the power to instruct the state government to follow whatever directive or regulation set forth by the federal government. So in this case, we can see that there is a coordination and centralization from the federal. So because whenever there is a crisis like this, the well-being of the citizen is always very, very important. So therefore, even if some states who are under the control of the opposition feel that they don't want to follow, but when it comes to dealing with national crisis like COVID-19 crisis, state government have to obey whatever directive set forth by the federal government. So in a way, there is no question that actions taken by the state government will be in contradiction to the action taken by the federal government, like what happened in America. A lot of cases in America, for example, New York. New York, what the governor of New York is taking actions, they are very different from the directive of the federal government under Trump administration. So that's why America is having a lot of problem with pandemic, because there is no coordination between the federal government and the state government. Whereas in Malaysia, why Malaysian government is able to face this crisis efficiently, because of in the federal constitution we have this act, a National Crisis Act, in which the state government, even though it is under the control of the opposition parties, still the state government have to obey the directive of the federal government. Thank you.
Okay, very good, Professor Ahmad Murtada. That's very good comparative experience between the US and the Malaysian perspectives. So now I will read some of the chat that already posted in the Zoom chat, but I will pick up because there are so many questions here. I will pick some of the questions that related to the topic. So first from Dedi Mulyadi, Bapak Profesor Dr. Dedi Mulyadi. These questions are for the panelists, either Professor Martada or Professor Rosita. The question is there any model of policy that effectively and efficiently solving economic and medical caused by this pandemic in international standards that can be applied in every country? So please, both of you, either Ibu Rosita or Professor Murtada, will address this question. Please.
I shall pass this to Prof. Martada. Thank you, Prof.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, like in my presentation earlier, I indicated that for every government, there is no standardized form of policy framework. Whatever policies, policy decisions they are to be made by each government will always have to take into consideration the nuances and sensitivity of the environment within that country. So similarly, in the case of Malaysia, the policy model that we are taking is very different from the one taken by America, or from the one taken by India, or from the one taken by other developed countries, even United Kingdom or other European countries. Our policy decisions, when the central government makes the policy decision, the consideration is always based on what is the needs and wishes of the local people. So that's why, some people are criticized initially when the government introduces MCO, Movement Control Order. Some people, they are not happy about that, because you cannot do anything. You cannot go out from your home. You cannot do this. You cannot go anywhere. You have to stay in your home for an expanded duration of time, which make it very inconvenient for a lot of people. But government has to do that. If you were to look at some other countries, the way they implement MCO or lockdown, some of the countries that implemented it very late. during the pandemic crisis. So no wonder these countries are having a lot of problems, even in the UK, in America, in some European countries like Italy, for example, worst case scenario. Whereas in some countries, smaller countries like Malaysia, like Hong Kong, like Taiwan, New Zealand, they have implemented it in the early stage of the pandemic. Why? They feel that this is the necessary precaution that every country has to take in order to prevent the crisis from becoming worse. So my answer to that kind of question is there is no single formula to frame a policy whenever it comes to this crisis. Every country has to formulate policies based on the needs and nuances of each environment. And in our case, what we are doing might be different from other countries. And it has been proven to be very successful. So far, alhamdulillah, the government has tackled this crisis very efficiently. And as of right now, I think the number of deaths are only around 120 something, if I'm not mistaken. So which is very, very good, compared to some other countries, that have a larger number of deaths. So my answer again is there is no single formula or standardized formula to develop policy framework when it comes to developing policies during pandemic crisis.
Okay, thank you, Professor Martada. So that's no one fits all, yeah, Professor?
Yeah, yes, definitely.
Thanks for this explanation. That's very good. But I will read some of the questions that I got from the chat. Here from Denny Sanjaya, building public trust, public administration policy has several supporting indicators. The question is how to build human resources strategy to increase public trust. Ask for enlightenment. I think this is directed to Ibu Rosita because it is related with the human resource strategy. Please, Ibu Rosita.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Said. All right. This is a very, to me, is quite a general question, okay? Because human resource strategies, there's a lot of strategies that we can talk about. But what can I say generally is the strategies has to be responsive and timely, formulated. All right, so that's why, because as what the moderator said just now, one size does not fit all. Okay, and same in this case. But what will be the main criteria in dealing with this? So I believe that it must be responsive and at the same time transparent and also flexible enough. Okay? For example, when we are dealing with the a productivity problem, so how do we respond to that? And also absenteeism, for example. Okay, shall we quit working? Shall we close the offices? So we have to respond positively and also bravely. And in Malaysia, and I believe in Indonesia too, we have introduced working from home. Even though this is not new, in Malaysia, we have started this before the pandemic to several public agencies and also in private sector, even though it's not very popular, but we have practiced this to tackle the issues of domestic handling among women's employees. How do we deal with, how do women employees deal with the kids and also with the office works? So here, when the pandemic comes, so we know that we can use that as one of the strategies. Okay? And also at the same time, we also encourage, during this pandemic also, government introduced several incentive programs and also training programs to increase employability and skills. And I believe that multi-skilling is one of the strategies that can be used in tackling these issues. Yeah, I think that's all for now from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Rosita. I'll read another questions, which comes from the Angga Minanda. This is he used bahasa here. I will read in bahasa Indonesia. Kita memaklumi bahwa tidak ada negara yang siap dalam menghadapi COVID-19. Dan kita pahami bahwa saat ini pemerintah dan para analis kebijakan harus bertindak tidak seperti biasanya, harus extraordinary, sebagaimana yang disampaikan oleh Bapak Presiden Jokowi. Pertanyaan saya adalah, dalam tinjauan dan analisis Bapak atau Ibu selama perjalanan penanganan dan pencegahan COVID-19 di Indonesia, apa saja kendala yang ditemui oleh pemerintah dalam menghasilkan kebijakan yang tepat? Kemudian apa solusinya agar tugas dan fungsi pemerintah bisa tetap maksimal? Jadi ini pertanyaannya sebetulnya sangat umum sekali. Mungkin Profesor Amir bisa membantu menjawab terkait dengan pertanyaan dari Angga Minanda. Silakan Prof. Halo Prof Amir. Sepertinya Prof Amir sedang offline, mungkin Ibu Nurliah bisa membantu.
Ya, terima kasih pertanyaannya. Penting sekali ya, dan bagus sekali pertanyaannya. Pertama, situasi kita sangat berbeda. Kita ambil saudara kita di Malaysia misalnya, Malaysia dengan maaf penduduk 30 juta ya, Prof. Martada.
Ya, betul. Yes.
And then you compare penduduk kita, hitungannya sekitar 250 juta. So di mana-mana it's a lot easier to handle ya, smaller population dan bigger population. Nah itu tentu kendalanya dengan populasi kita yang besar, dan tentu koordinasi menjadi challenge ya. Bukan kesulitan, kita anggap ini challenge. Terlebih lagi kita dikenal sebagai negara kepulauan terbesar. Pulau-pulau terluar kita banyak sekali ya, ada 13.000 pulau. Bagaimana mengkomunikasikan situasi ini, ya? Dan bagaimana tingkat ketaatan masyarakatnya. Nah ini semua yang akan memerlukan waktu yang lebih panjang. Jadi kalau kita mungkin melihat Malaysia, Singapura atau negara-negara tetangga kita yang mungkin sudah lebih duluan cope ya, bisa mengatasi ini, kita mungkin butuh waktu yang lebih agak panjang karena besarnya jumlah penduduk, besarnya jumlah wilayah, dengan kondisi ekonomi kita juga yang sangat, dan semua negara kena ya, impact dengan masalah pandemik ini. Ekonomi kita kalau data terakhir ini udah menjadi pertumbuhannya menjadi minus ya. Jadi dan ini perlu koordinasi, sekali lagi koordinasi antara pemerintah pusat, bagaimana pemerintah pusat membuat kebijakan secara transparan, agar itu, karena ini masyarakat juga kan dipaksa nih menggunakan digital ya, handphone aja bisa 1 hari belajar bisa selesai. Nah saya pikir situasi ini juga akan memaksa masyarakat untuk mau digital, segala macam bentuk informasi pemerintah itu bisa langsung nyambung ke handphone masyarakat ya, warga. Termasuk jenis-jenis bantuan ya, masyarakat sekarang bisa mempertanyakan langsung ke camatnya, ke lurahnya, bantuan apa yang mereka misalnya udah dengar dari pusat, sudah nyampe belum, itu percepatan informasi yang dibutuhkan. Tapi saya kira kolaborasi ini kembali lagi menjadi sangat penting, termasuk kolaborasi antar kementerian ya. Jadi jangan sampai ada kementerian sendiri yang berbeda koordinasi sehingga membingungkan masyarakat. Nah, itu jawaban saya.
Oke, terima kasih Bu Nurliah atas jawabannya, very brief and straightforward answers to the questions. Sebetulnya ini there are so many question already posted on the chat here, but unfortunately because time is limited, we have to finish this webinar at 12. So we set already 3 hours webinar. Maybe those who already posted the questions unfortunately cannot be answered directly by the speakers because of the time limited. So maybe you can ask directly to the speakers through emails or WhatsApp. Maybe you can ask to the committee to ask the email address of the speakers. So you can ask directly to the speakers. So now we come to the conclusions of the international webinars. We already heard from the speakers, a range of the speakers from different backgrounds, political science, public administrations, public policy, that already shared their perspectives, thought, and experience, both Malaysian perspectives and Indonesian perspectives. That was very, very wonderful and very, a challenging experience for us in Indonesia as well, because we already know that Malaysia has different strategy to deal with because of different political systems that apply in the country. But this is good a chance for us to understand how COVID-19 is a very, very unfortunate event. We cannot wait until when that this pandemic will be end. So thank you for this wonderful event, especially for Professor Ahmad Murtada and Ibu Rosita for sharing your experience, your thought, your concepts, your research as well in terms of how Malaysian governments and also how expertise in terms of public policy and administrations deals with the situations, unfortunate situations of COVID-19. So thank you very much, Professor Ahmad Murtada and also Ibu Rosita, and also Professor Amir Imbarudin as well, Ibu Nurlia and Ibu Endang for joining with this conference as the speakers. We are very glad to have you in this event. So because Pak Joni already permissions not to present in this webinar, so I just give some of the conclusions to the audience as well. So thank you very much for the audience arranged from Malaysia, also from Indonesia, from all countries, from East Java, from Kalimantan, from Sumatra, and also from the East, from the Java Island. So thank you very much for joining to this conference. Again, before we finish the webinar, international webinar, we have some photo sessions that will be guided by Ibu Endah Trianonstari. So I, just a moderator, apologize for maybe the inconvenience or things that I already wrongly mentioned or anything to do with me. So I apologize for all the mistakes I did. So many thanks for all participants, our speakers and the audience for all the countries, Indonesia and Malaysia. So maybe we can meet for the future, we can arrange, we can develop cooperations with the University of Utara Malaysia. We develop some of the programs, not only webinar, maybe joint research or anything that we can do to improve our cooperations and simultaneously we can improve our country as well. So thank you very much to the speakers and the audience as well. So I'll hand over this webinar to Ibu Endah Trianonsari. Please, Ibu Endah.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Said Abdullah, PhD, and as the moderator, and also all the distinguished speakers for the very insightful speech and very quite interactive Q&A. I hope that we can learn so many things from the webinar. But ladies and gentlemen, before leaving the meeting room, I invite you to take the virtual photo together. So please pose in front of the camera while we take picture of all of you. Jadi Bapak Ibu silakan dinyalakan kameranya. It will take around 1 or 2 minutes. Please remain in your seat and smile at the camera. So the first slide, 1, 2, 3. Okay, the next slide, still smiling. 1, 2, 3. Okay, next slide. Smiling, 1, 2, 3. Next slide, cheese, 1, 2, 3. And this is the last slide. Still smile to the camera. 1, 2, 3. All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And We also would like to extend our sincere gratitude for your participation, and as a token of appreciation, we will present certificate to the distinguished speakers. So please help Mas Egi to present the certificate. And we will also inform that the participants will get the certificate sent to your email. So the first one, this is for Professor Dr. Ahmad Martada Mohammad. Thank you, Professor, for your participation, and thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you also for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, the next one is for Associate Professor Dr. Rosita Abdul Muttalib. Thank you, Professor, for coming and sharing with us.
Yes, thanks.
The next one is for Professor Endang Wiryatni. Thank you, Professor, for sharing with us.
Thank you for your inviting.
This is for Professor Amir Imbarudin. Thank you, Professor, for sharing with us.
Thank you.
And this one for Professor Dr. Nurliah Nurdin. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
All right, so again, the participants should fill the link of attendees. That the link is available on the chat, and the certificate will be sent to your email. So ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the very end of our productive and inspiring webinar today. I hope that we can learn so many things that might inspire us to support our future work. Thank you. Until we meet again. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih,
Prof. Rosita, Prof. Enda, Prof.
Terima kasih semua, Prof.
Ya, Prof. Yanti semua.
Terima kasih semuanya, Prof. Yanti.
Prof. Nolia,
Terima
Prof.
kasih.
Amir.
Thank you.
Pak Said. Ya.
Terima kasih
semua.
Sampai ketemu ya.
Ya, sampai ketemu semua.
Selamat ketemu di era non-pandemik.
Kapan Prof. Martada ke sini, Prof. Rosita?
Insya Allah Bu.
The pandemic is over.
Pandemic is over, not yet.
Prof. Yanti atur nuhun.
Ya, sama-sama Bu Teni. Makasih juga semuanya.
Ya, terima kasih semuanya.
Bu Eli atur nuhun.
Terima kasih semuanya.
Terima kasih semua tim IT semua ya.
Ya, terima kasih semua.
Endah, Pak Said, Bu Eli,
Makasih.
Bu Teni, terima kasih.
Ya, terus Prof.
Saya izin live ya.
Iya Bu, izin live dulu.
To all participants, this meeting will be ended in 1 minute.